The manager of the Oakland, California warehouse, which erupted in flames during a weekend party, appeared distraught during that interview this morning. The Friday night fire killed at least 36 people. There are new details emerging that some of the victims actually were able to send final text messages from inside the burning building to their relatives and their loved ones, messages which said things like, "I'm going to die and I love you." Joining me now is attorney Emily Compagno, and you know, this is so horrific what has happened here, but we live in a litigious society. He appears incredibly sorrowful, but, you know, he was the manager of that warehouse. Does he bear some kind of, you know, legal responsibility? Could people sue him? I mean, what could happen here?
He absolutely does, and I'd like to highlight that the fact that, yes, this is an absolute tragedy. And that this is a perfect illustration, though, of when your behavior is so reckless that it can render you up into criminal liability. So regardless of being a litigious society, he absolutely faces actual criminal liability because of the recklessness of his behavior in operating that warehouse as it was.
And when you say operating the warehouse as it was, I mean, this warehouse was being used as a residence. There was no permit for a party or parties. So when this kind of tragedy takes place, when does it become criminal? I'm thinking back to that awful, you know, tragedy in Rhode Island, what, almost 15 years ago? Mm-hmm. Not quite the same situation, but a massive loss of life at a party, at a rock concert. In this situation, I mean, it does sound like he could be criminally charged.
Absolutely. And so the standard there, especially in California, is basically that if your behavior is so reckless that it endangers others' lives and you exhibit an indifference to it, it doesn't matter your intent. So absolutely, he's clearly sorrowful and he's clearly in angst, but it has nothing to do, because it really just, he's still liable for it. It has nothing to do with intent. And he's facing up to 20 years per loss of life. And that kind of, the recklessness is the fact that he himself requested and received, for example, funds to improve the building. He was constantly changing around the labyrinth. He was building steps to the second floor upon nothing. So it's not even a permitting situation. It really is a severe case of absolute reckless operation.
Forgive me for asking this question. Nothing can bring back those 36 souls, and it's just, you know, you almost want to break down in tears when these kinds of things happen. He clearly didn't intend for something like this to happen. This really is, as tragic as it is, an accident. What good does charging him criminally do?
Well, I think it's part of our system in that we have to hold those responsible regardless of intent, and that's why the charges would be involuntary manslaughter. So it's criminally negligent. It's basically saying that you are, again, you're that reckless with your behavior that it rose to the level of being criminally liable, but we acknowledge you did not intend to do this, and therefore it's involuntary manslaughter. And that's why. And you're right, it will not bring back those lives, but it will at least hold him semi-accountable for that recklessness, and it will prove a deterrent effect, hopefully, for any other operators in the same situation right now who are exhibiting that reckless disregard for human life.
I can't imagine anyone watching the video that we've been showing on the news and your heart not breaking. I'm afraid we are out of time, so we can't discuss the situation in Texas with the elector. We'll bring that up another time, but thank you very much for joining us, Emily Compagno.